Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Wealth Conversation podcast with me, Tsitsi Mutiti. I guide high-achieving women on their journey to build lasting wealth so they can prepare for an abundant future in every area of their life. I hope that today's episode will help you to transform your relationship with money so you can make the choices that will enable you to create the opportunities and lasting wealth that you desire. Let's get straight into this week's episode. I have been looking forward to releasing this episode because I will be talking to Vangile Makwakwa, the woman who has identified 5 African money archetypes. Her work focuses on how Black tax impacts individuals in an African family, and it has been an eye-opener for me and helped me get a better understanding of how and why I deal with Black tax, as well as the impact my actions and attitude have had on my finances and certain relationships with my family. Now, here's a little bit about Vangile. Vangile Makwakwa is the founder of Wealthy Money, a company that helps people heal ancestral money trauma so they can fall in love with their bank accounts, live their best lives, and create generational wealth. She is the teacher at Wealthy Money Academy and the creator and facilitator of all the online courses. She is also the host of the Property Magician podcast and the Money Magic podcast. She is the author of Heart, Mind, and Money, Using Emotional Intelligence for Financial Success. Vangile has a finance degree and an MBA and started her personal finance journey by paying off $60,000 in debt. She's been traveling for 15 years and has lived in over 12 countries and built her company wealthymoney.com virtually as she travels and lives in different countries. Welcome to the Wealth Conversation podcast, Vangile.
Oh, thank you for having me, Titi. I'm so excited.
Oh, it is an absolute honor to have you on this podcast. Please, could you share with us a bit more about yourself and a bit about your background?
Yes. So I am coach. What I do is I help women of color heal ancestral money trauma so that they can fall in love with their bank accounts, increase income, and live their best lives. And how I came to do this work was I was $60,000 in debt, struggling with panic attacks, so depressed I couldn't get out of bed. And I come from a finance background. So that means that I studied finance at UCT at the University of Cape Town in South Africa. So I did my finance honors degree, and I also have my MBA from the Simmons School of Management. And as soon as I graduated with my MBA, I was hit with all these emotional things. So I just couldn't talk about money anymore. I couldn't do anything, which is problematic. Anything to do with money, I could not do because this was what I was trained to do for a living. This is what I went to school for, right? And I was $60,000 in debt and just falling apart. So what I knew was that this was not about the knowledge of money, because I had gone to school for this. So this was pretty obvious. And I had been the kind of student that had got A pluses and A's, and also had actually been some years on the dean's list at UCT. So I was just like, yeah, I think I know what the heck is going on. Intellectually, I could talk to you about investments and all sorts of things, economics, and I loved that stuff. It was very intellectual for me. But when it came to applying it in my own life and making it real, or even starting a business, which was one of my focuses in the MBA program, was strategy and entrepreneurship, I just couldn't do it. So for me, I knew there was a lot more to money. And I had to start working on that. And I knew that my panic attacks and my depression were linked to money, but I just didn't know how to go about dealing with that. And it also felt shameful, right? I come from an African family. So here you are, you've gone to all these incredible universities, they've paid for the private schools, all that. And here you want to come tell us that you don't know how to deal with money. You're panicking just handling like $1 bill. Because at the time I was living in the US. You're panicking over that. So it just felt like I was the scourge in my family, and I was just an embarrassment. And I couldn't talk about it with friends as well for the same reasons. I saw all my friends and I thought everyone is doing well. What I didn't know that I now know is that people didn't know how to talk about money, and not everybody was doing as well. I thought everybody was doing well with money except me. And this was my big horrible secret, and it kept me awake at night. I could no longer digest food. My health started failing, so it was no longer just limited to my emotional health, it was my physical health. So here we are. I now do this work to help others that are like me or were like me, and to help them heal their money stories so that they can become debt free. So now I am debt free, guys. I got debt free within 4 years as I was doing the work. I started my own business. I travel as I run my business, and I'm able to also hire other people to help me in my business. So a lot has changed. And I talk about money all the time versus when I couldn't talk about money because I would like end up in bed. You couldn't actually ask me what is the price of anything. Ask me what is the price of milk. I would panic, and I'd feel like you're trying to entrap me to tell you about my finances. What I would hear wasn't what is the price of milk? It's you have issues with money. You can't afford milk without buying it on a credit card, which was true.
Wow. What a journey, Vangile, what a journey. And it's so amazing that you've come out the other end and are supporting people. And your journey is sort of similar to mine in a way where, like, I knew the technical stuff about money. I was learning about it. I was studying. I spent 3 years of my life just, head down in books, learning about wealth management. And yet my finances were just going the opposite direction. It was as if I wasn't even working in the financial services industry. So, what you say about it's not about the technical knowledge, it is about you as an individual, and your backstory. Those are so important. And, thank you for sharing that. I'm sure someone listening has resonated with your story.
It doesn't, like you've said before in my podcast, which will be coming out, is that like, it doesn't mean that we don't fall, we don't have hard times, but what I will say is I'm still debt free. As one of my students recently say, I don't owe anyone but God, oh no man but God. So like that brings me peace, because I think what it's like to owe people and have credit card debt and wake up in the middle of the night, and just like sit on the edge of your bed and just think, phew, what will become of me?
Exactly. It's crazy. It's it seems like there's no end. There's no end to it. Well, you've mentioned that you lived in the US for a bit. And I know one thing that's amazed me about you is that you've actually lived in 12 different countries so far.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to add to that. Why is traveling so important to you?
Oh my gosh. So traveling to me has opened up myself to myself. Not, people say traveling opens up the world for you. It does that. But it's like who I am in every country, right? It's easy to be easygoing and chilled in a country where, like, versus when I was living in South Korea, where you land, you don't know a human soul, you don't speak the language, very few people even know anything beyond how are you, and you can't even read the letters of the language, so you don't know where you are. So it's like things like that. And I experienced that in Prague as well, where it's like, what is going on? And you don't even know like what street you live in, because you didn't know how to read the street name, you didn't know how to pronounce it. So you learn so much about yourself in such scenarios, So, and I think also what makes traveling so important to me is not just discovering myself in these contexts, but also learning to live on the kindness of strangers, like literally, I have learned to trust people in different countries. Like when you don't know where you are, like learning to speak in sign language and asking, please tell me where this place is, and just giving handwritten things to say, this is printed off like Airbnb. This is my place where I'm going to. I have no clue where that is. Please help me put it into Uber. Please talk to the Uber driver for me. That has been my experience. And I think what traveling has done for me it's made me trust people, and I do believe that I am easily trusting, but I do believe that traveling has really 10x that, because so much of who I am right now is because of strangers, people who are strangers and now like are family to me, that is all travel for me. Literally what travel has done for my life. So this is why travel is important to me. And also because I'm different in every country, right? Because the environment is different. I have learned that cities can impact who I am, countries can impact who I am, people can impact who I am. So travel has taught me the importance of environment and who you have around you. And I've actually taken a lot of the lessons that I've learned through travel into my business. And it's also made me so tolerant of many different people. I used to be the most impatient person ever. Like, I know people are like, oh my gosh, you're so patient. And I'm like, I've had to learn to be that, And I remember in one country, I can't remember where exactly. I remember I was screaming at the top of my lungs. Nobody understands me. I'm anxious. I'm scared. I'm overwhelmed. And one elderly gentleman comes to me in broken English and he's like, why you shout so much? I've been watching you for the last few days. All you do is just shout, obviously in broken English, right? It's like, what the hell? And I'm looking at this Asian guy. He's like, no one here fully understands you. You shouting and you getting upset and anxious just makes everybody else anxious.
Wow.
So let me help you. And like, maybe you do it slower. That elderly man, like literally helped me check myself. For the first time, I was just like, why do I do that? So there's all these things that I've learned and learning, and also because in different cultures, different things get translated differently, right? Like different behaviors. I've also learned that different humans respond to different behaviors. So actually, travel has made me so much of a better relationship with humans, So like, and which has made me a way, way better entrepreneur with my team, with everyone. Just if someone doesn't get one thing, I translate it in a different way. I've learned to try different things. I don't think I would be this person without traveling. I actually don't think I would be an entrepreneur without traveling, because it's when I lived in the US that I learned entrepreneurship, really, really learned it. So I love traveling because it's exposed me to new ideas, new ways of thinking, new cultures, new ways of seeing the world, which I've literally taken and translated into my business and into my own research around trauma and doing work. So yeah, love traveling.
That's amazing. I'm actually thinking about travel in such a different way now, just hearing your reasons for traveling. I can't wait to go on my next trip now. But yeah, but you're so right. You do actually learn a lot about yourself when you are in different situations. And I love that, because what you were saying also made me think about one of the Wealth Cornerstones, well, the 5 areas that I call the Wealth Cornerstones. And one of those cornerstones is social well-being. And by you traveling, all these people and experiences have been feeding into you, which all helps you with that part of your well-being. So absolutely, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. Now, with all your travel and what you've been saying about learning about yourself and other people, you've identified what you call the African money archetypes. So before we get into them, I just want you to share with us, if you don't mind, why you felt it was important to identify archetypes, especially for Africans, because you've been, as you've told us, all over the world.
Oh gosh. Okay. So mainly because when you look at archetypes, they don't what archetypes take into account family dynamics within African families around Black tax. So I literally wanted to do archetypes and exploring exactly this particular issue around Black tax and how we behave with helping out financially or receiving financial help within our families, right? And that is, I feel like, as it says, Black tax, very unique to African people or Black people. But I've also found it to be a thing in Asia, right? But the thing is that we don't know how to talk about it because and we don't have archetypes around that, mainly because it's a touchy issue. And I talk a lot about Black tax, but when I started doing the work that I do around trauma and Black tax and talking about breadwinners and the recipients of Black tax and like unpacking the trauma from both sides, I used to get so much pushback, and people would literally send me swear messages in my inbox on social media. So I wanted to do this work and unpack it so that we can understand the archetypes, but also understand some of the things that drive each of the various archetypes within our families around money in a way that is unique to us, where when people hear these archetypes, they've been like, oh my gosh, that is me, that's my aunt, that's my brother, that's my sister. And we can unpack it. Why? Because it's unique to us and our little unique situation, So it doesn't mean that these are the only money archetypes, but these are the archetypes that I've created that are unique to Black tax and how we work around money. And at least it will give us compassion for ourselves and also give compassion for the other side so that we can understand why, even when we're trying to pay for our brothers or our sisters or our nieces and nephews for years, why they will not be able to move forward and expand financially, because most times we're just giving money. And what we're doing most times is we're not trying to understand why there's no progress happening. The people that are giving money are frustrated. The people that are receiving money are frustrated because it feels like manipulation, right? So how do we then start to understand each other and understand what is driving us so that we can change ourselves before we try to change the next person? So yeah, this is why I created these archetypes. And it's so much fun though, because I think we all see ourselves in these archetypes and it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on?
Yeah. I remember when I heard you talk about them for the first time, I got a pen and paper and I started writing down, and I was circling the ones that were like linked to me because I was just like, that is me. So I absolutely love that you've done this. And could you please share the different archetypes that you have identified?
Okay, so let's start with my least favorite, like my nemesis, but I love it because so many people resonate with it. The fixer.
The fixer, okay.
Right. So guys, the fixer is the breadwinner in the family. We all know the fixers, right? The fixer's job is to fix everybody's problems. They assume that role, right? So you are the first person that people call when they have drama in the family, when there's like, I don't know, someone has gotten into a car accident, money is needed for hospitals to pay back the car, everything, you are the one, right? You are just the breadwinner. Like, so fixers are basically the breadwinner. But here's the thing, fixers are not exactly loved in the family, right? You rescue everyone comes to you, but most often the fixers get exhausted and they have a lot of resentment as well. So they do a lot of shouting, but Sometimes people don't even call fixers to the table. They just arrive at the family home. They see something broken. They don't ask questions. They start shouting and screaming and replacing things. So-and-so has dropped out of school, dropped out of varsity. A fixer was not called, but they are the family fixer. They come, they make sure that that person goes back to school, and they get themselves heavily involved in that problem. So fixers have in their budgets other people, right? So we all know the fixer. And here's the important thing, fixers may not be loved, but a family without a fixer falls apart, literally. And these are the shadow sides of the archetypes, right? So even in the shadow side, a fixer is fixing everybody's problem. So when a fixer passes on, or God forbid, a fixer decides to move into a destroyer archetype, and we'll talk about that, or a fixer just decides they're done, they just walk away because the family has pissed them off, that family will fall apart because there's nobody else that will step into place and pay for so-and-so's, the distant cousin's school fees, this one's child's school fees or university fees. Fixers are great like that. They will do all that, but then they do cause a lot of stress and drama, because what a fixer is trying to do is they're trying to create the perfect family without understanding the underlying trauma, which is why fixers, even though they're important to the family and they're doing so much good in a family, meet so much resistance. You know, in the end, like sometimes they'll hear people say, I didn't ask you to do that for me. I didn't ask you to pay for my child's school fees. I didn't ask you to bail me out of this. What is
my goodness?
You know, and then like, but without the fixer, that situation would have been a disaster. But also they are doing things where they were not asked. So fixers do a lot of preempting of things, and they're not appreciated for that. And it causes a lot of resentment. And here's the other thing, fixers always often feel alone. Like the burden of the family is theirs alone, you know, because when something happens to the fixer, because they've always been the fixer, there's no one else to bail out the fixer. So fixers are often in debt because of that. They will even take on debt to save the family, to keep it together, to help others out. And when they are in trouble, nobody else comes and stands with them because they are the strongest. And often fixers will be your strong Black women. Not to say that a fixer cannot be a man. My parents were both fixers in their family. My dad is still a fixer, right? But not to that extreme. He does have boundaries. So over the years, he has stepped into his golden shadow. But my mom was an extreme fixer who then turned destroyer. Let's talk about destroyers. And one of the things—
Before you talk about the destroyer, Vangile, I just want to say that I am a fixer. I was trying to hold back, but everything you've said, that is me. And even to this day, I do try and hold back because I can see the problems coming, and I can feel myself already wanting to step in and be like, okay, let's do this, because in a way, I also feel, and maybe other fixers who might be listening to this will resonate with this, you feel that the problem is coming and it's going to come to you. So it's like, let's just deal with it now. And sometimes I think there have been situations where I've jumped in too early and not given people the opportunity to kind of fix to a certain point. So because I've jumped in too early, I end up giving more, whether it's financially or my time, my energy. And yeah, like you said, we do feel tired and alone.
Yeah. So what I want to say to the fixers, it's not about not fixing, right? The golden shadow of a fixer is someone who sees that, but then starts to set boundaries for themselves and starts to respect other people's boundaries. Because here's the thing, fixers don't want to hear this, but there's a lot of boundary violations with the fixer, because a fixer always knows what's best. And listen, like I said, guys, a family without a fixer is a family that is in trouble. You do know best. This is why fixers are needed. The thing is, with a fixer, what you need to ask is permission to help. and permission to fix. Do you need my help now? Let me know when you need my help. Do you need me to just listen? Are you calling me to vent, to listen, or what do you need? And then instead of giving that kind of help, also asking yourself, how can I provide help in such a way that I am no longer needed the next time? You know?
I love that.
The work of a fixer is, how can I not be needed next time? And this is where the inner work comes in, because most fixers are looking for validation, and most fixers are trying to create the perfect family, right? So something has happened and the fixer is trying to fix what broke down either in a past life or a family or childhood or inner teen. And so now you're like, I'm just going to fix this, right? You're not comfortable with things falling apart. And yet, how is everyone else around you going to learn that this is a terrible mistake, that dropping out of school is a terrible mistake? You know, they have to go through it and experience it themselves. Whereas a fixer would keep going ham about it, drive the person to school, make sure they're getting the degree, literally almost be studying with them, right? And that's the thing. So the other person then feels like, F this, you know, I was forced to do this, versus when they come to this conclusion of, I want to change my life myself. So fixers have to learn to figure out how are they no longer needed? And that's a hard thing for a fixer, because being needed means you have a role in the family, right?
Yes.
And so they equate it with love. So you need to then do the work so that you are no longer seeking validation and getting validation by helping others, and forcefully helping at times.
Yeah. Oh, I've still got a lot of work to do. I've been making notes. Let's move on to the next one, because I could talk all day about the fixer.
Right, because it's your primary archetype. So let's
Indeed.
move on to the destroyer, guys. This is my primary archetype. And you'll understand why my mom and I have an intensely hectic relationship. Like, me and the fixers in my family butt heads. The destroyer archetype. So the destroyer, you know, these family members, you go to a family function, at a funeral, a wedding, you live in dread that they will come, and they will not make it. You live in dread that they will come, because whatever the family drama is, they will expose it. Give them time, you know, they will in the middle of a funeral, or right after the funeral, between the people, or during the people, as we say in South Africa, start to spill the family stories and the dirty laundry. And they will do that like, you owe me money, you borrowed me money, I borrowed you money. They don't have a filter. So the destroyer literally does that. They are in the family unit to destroy the family, right? And here's the thing, as a destroyer, I feel like I have to tell people why we do this. So the destroyer archetype, where the fixer is trying to gloss over all the bad stuff, the destroyer is going to announce at the family funeral, family wedding, everything. So-and-so dropped out of school. So-and-so had a baby by 3 different baby fathers. What destroyers are trying to do is they're trying to bring things to the surface so that they can be healed and they can be cleaned. But the destroyer, without a filter and without any kind of diplomacy, literally destroys a family, right? They are the ones that will come to the family function and say, no, you don't get to talk because the fixer is paying for all your 3 kids' school fees. So you have no say in this, and they will bring up all the financial drama, and it embarrasses people, right? So the destroyer also is least likely, for obvious reasons, to ever be called when there are big family issues. The fixer will always be called, but the destroyer will be called last. Why? Because when the destroyer, there's the fear that when the destroyer comes, before they can fix things, they will start to just destroy. Oh, you mean you lost money, where a fixer would come in oh, money has been lost because of gambling. Now there's no money for rent. A destroyer is the one that will come in and say, oh, no, I'm not going to be part of this because the reason why there is no money for rent is because you gambled it away. Go sort yourself out. And then they'll tell the whole world about the gambling. So destroyers in many ways are counterproductive and emotionally destructive in terms of our financial trauma, because what is already a financially traumatic event, a destroyer will earth even the deepest traumas and bring a rift to the surface, right? And they cannot stand the fixer, because what fixers are doing is they are fixing the problem, right? Someone doesn't know how to pay rent, you call a fixer pays rent, right? And a fixer talks later. Yeah. The destroyer doesn't want that to happen because they want the person to learn the lesson around the ring, right? And so they will hop on about it and not be bothered. So a destroyer will come and make the situation emotionally difficult and worse, and then walk away. So destroyers are often not asked for money, right? They are a last resort. But here's the thing, your destroyers are sometimes often financially responsible. Why? Because a destroyer is also alone in their own way, because they have no one to turn to because they've been too busy doing what? Destroying relationships, right? So the destroyer, so they can't call on anyone, right? So this is where the destroyer is really hectic. One thing to bear in mind, though, is destroyer energy is extremely powerful, right? A family without a fixer to absorb the destroyer energy will completely fall apart if you've got more destroyers than a strong fixer or strong fixers, right? A family can withstand 10 destroyers in a family, people who are just destroying the financial well-being of the family, etc., if there's one strong fixer. Wow. But a family, because that is how powerful a fixer is. Your problems come when you have destroyers and there are no fixers. Because remember, your destroyers are out here destroying whatever you're trying to build, they come, they destroy. You know, you've paid the family money, you've just paid the rent, they come, they destroy, they remind the addict that they are an addict. This is why they can't pay the money. The addict goes back to addiction. Everything falls apart, all sorts of things happen. So destroyer energy really is very destructive, but fixer energy is more powerful than destroyer energy. Your problems come when a fixer turns destroyer, when a family completely pisses off a fixer, and this often happens. Sometimes a destroyer can go to fixer, but and that's perfect, that's great. You really want that, even if they're your toxic fixer, perfect. What you want to shy away from, which I've sometimes seen in families, is a fixer that goes to destroyer. This happened in my mom's family. You're doomed, because whatever a fixer knows what they were fixing. Now they know exactly how to destroy the family because they know exactly what they've been fixing. They know whose school fees they've been paying, who they've been helping, who they've been covering for. Now they go out of their way to destroy all that and to bring it to the surface, to bring up the shame, the embarrassment, the trauma. So destroyers work with a lot of emotional energy, right? So if your fixer goes emotional and starts destroying and tearing people apart emotionally, that family may not survive unless if you've got another fixer that can absorb that. And that fixer better have the same amount of fixing energy or even more than your fixer turned destroyer. So if you guys are listening to this and you've seen like breadwinners that have gone nuclear in your families and you've seen them go no more and they've just completely decided to bow out, then, and you've seen families fall apart, then you'll see how this happens. And sometimes this will even happen because your fixers can also be emotional fixers, which can kind of keep the family together. Like when grandmothers fall, when a grandmother passes on, you will see that sometimes the family can no longer hold it together because they were the emotional fixers in the family, right? Or when your breadwinners completely bow out. That is still okay, but do not anger them to such a point that they go nuclear on you. You don't want that.
Yeah.
That becomes a disaster. And one way that we do that in our families is we completely don't appreciate the fixers, right? When you've got too many destroyers in a family that are destroying the fixer, and then the fixer turns on them. They've been able to keep fixing all the drama that the destroyers cause, family functions gone or awry, all sorts of things, until your fixer goes, "If it, I'm done." And then they go nuclear in the same way.
Yeah, I think as a fixer, I can testify to that. I mean, I haven't gone and destroyed my family or anything like that, but when I get annoyed, I really go ballistic. And the one person who tends to bear the brunt is my daughter. If I've been helping her and she's decided to do something that's not in the plan, whoa, I can talk and I will lecture her I've done a 3-hour lecture,
gosh.
honestly. And you've just explained it all, because at that point, I've gone from fixer to destroyer. And when I get annoyed and I'm talking to you, I will tell you everything from the day you were born, everything you have done, because we know.
When fixer goes destroyer, they do that, right? And the other thing is that the destroyers can be self-destructive, and they can use money to destroy a family. So, I mean, we've sometimes seen it when a destroyer is in charge of the family, and then they can use money to start to manipulate people and destroy a family, or they can use money to destroy themselves. So they turn the money on themselves, like alcoholism, all sorts of things. So destroyers, and destroyer energy is that powerful, right? So the addiction can also then start to cause destruction. So I think the one thing that makes fixers and destroyers extremely different is that destroyers are also emotionally destructive, whereas fixers are actually trying to fix. So, and when a destroyer, so imagine going full nuclear destroyer like that and no longer trying to fix, Titi. Then you are like that 24/7 with everyone in your family as you would be with your daughter.
Wow.
Can you imagine how much damage that would do in the family?
Absolutely. It would in fact, no, I can't, because now that I think about it properly, the implications are just unbelievable.
My mom did that.
Financial, emotional, you're breaking up relationships. It's just such a strain. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. And why I'm reacting this way is I know myself, and I know when I get to that, when where the tipping point is for me to get into destroyer mode, and the rage, your brain is just constantly plotting, and fortunately, I don't do that stuff, because I guess the fixer, after calming down a little bit, I go back into fixer mode, and it's about, let's sort this out. Let's be amicable. But if I were to snap one day and be like, I've had enough, because I've carried so much weight for so long. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Fixers do carry a lot of weight. So destroyers literally would just destroy and be done. They would just walk away. I always say to people, my mom's family couldn't survive me because I'm a very, very strong destroyer. And by the time I left, and when my grandma passed away, and then my mom turned destroyer, that family completely fell apart. I was in my teens and I didn't understand that I was a destroyer energy. But literally, I left the family and I stopped communicating with everyone at 17. So can you imagine what a destroyer teen could do? Now imagine an adult turned fixer turned destroyer with resources and everything. And we've seen teens that are also have destroyer energy, how it can literally tear a family apart. So on the flip side, with destroyers, I think all destroyers need is for someone to say, I see the BS, right? And often it's the fixer that needs to do that for the destroyers, to say, I see it. The fixer says, I see it, and I'm no longer trying to heal it.
Yeah.
Right? It has to come to the surface. So let's talk about it. Let's stop trying to make it perfect. Because the other thing is the destroyers wear out fixers, hey? That is the thing with the destroyer. They are trying to get the fixer to stop fixing what is problematic so that it can be acknowledged as a problem and then healed. And then that brings me to the other archetype, which is the sweet one, right? So this is the archetype. We all have them in our families. Everyone loves them, right? And then you get destroyers that cannot stand them. This is how you know you're dealing.
I can see that.
Right? Like,
just from the label, sweet one and destroyer, they wouldn't get along at all.
Yeah, the sweet one pushes the destroyer's button, but the sweet one and the fixer work together hand in hand. Why? The sweet one is literally the sweet one. They are the ones, they may not be financially available, but they are always emotionally available for the family. One way to recognize them, there's a passing. The first person you call is the fixer because the fixer brings money, right? There's a funeral, there's a wedding. The fixer will bring money and organization to this or to whatever's going on. The sweet one will bring hands, they helping. They are emotionally available. They keep the family together. When the fixer and the destroyer are at each other's throats, the sweet one is the one that is able to then calm the family down, remind the family that they are a family, all that. And they also always going to be available to make sure that they can cook. If they're the women, they can cook, they can slaughter, they can call in their friends from various societies to help. They are very popular within the neighborhood, but the sweet one has got a lot of financial issues as well, and not in the traditional way. The sweet one and the fixer are often, they can actually help each other. So often when the fixer can't get help, the sweet one will step in, and the sweet one also won't ask for help, but the fixer will often help them as well. Why? Because between the two of them, they hold the family together like glue, right? The sweet one emotionally and through other resources. It's not always financial that families are being helped and that black tax happens, right? It's also through emotional stuff. Like I said, social networks. The sweet one is the one that will know who to call for what. They've got a big friendship network. So when there's a passing, it's often their friends that are there that will know the family, that will help out, all that. So they bring a lot of social capital and a lot of emotional intelligence to the table. But they also look after themselves financially. They're able to help here and there, but not as much as the fixer financially. And here's the big problem with the sweet one. They hold themselves back from financial expansion. Often the sweet one, where they grew up, is where they will stay. They will get married and stay there. They will live in the same neighborhood that they grew up. They are the ones that also, they'll know the entire family history. Everyone will come to them and visit them. They are the sweet one, right? Family functions will often happen at their houses. It doesn't matter if it's the village or the location. Everybody in the family knows where they live. People may know where the fixer and the destroyer live, but nobody is trying to go and hang up in those houses, right? Nobody wants to be fixed. Nobody wants to be destroyed. But people, it's almost like a gathering place. Everybody knows where the sweet one lives, but the sweet one is non-threatening financially. They will always grow to a certain point financially. They will never grow beyond where they live. So they won't make a massive amount of money unless everyone in the family made a massive amount of money. Their businesses won't expand beyond what everyone else in the family has expanded to. Why? Because the sweet one's deepest trauma is that they must be validated. They must be loved for being sweet. And so causing any kind of friction is not in their agenda. And being the ones that causes people to be like, who, you and your big car? No. When they have a car, they will get the okay car. The fixer and the destroyers are the ones in the family that are going to have flashy cars, and the runaway, we'll talk about that. They'll have the flashy cars and all that, but the sweet one will have the sensible car. They'll have the sensible house. They'll have enough for retirement and pension. They'll do so much so that nobody is threatened by them or envies them or upsets them. We all know some of those family members, right? And we all love them, except for the destroyer. Why? Because just like the fixer, the sweet one is trying where tension should happen, where fights should happen. The sweet one instantly steps in. What I see is we are all a family. Can we please remember that? Oh, let's love each other in kumbaya. And they are often the ones that will remind us to pray and go in prayer, etc. The destroyer is not about that, right? They just like, you are toxic. You are part of the problem, just like with the fixer, because you are not holding things together. The sweet one fears the destroyer. They don't understand this kind of deep anger that the destroyer has. They're so confused by them, so they try to stay out of their way and they try to be sweet to them, and the destroyer sometimes bullies them because of that, right? Which annoys the fixer, right?
Wow.
Because like, how dare you, right?
Yeah.
So that like is another friction causer, right? So that is one of the biggest one. So the sweet one is awesome, right? I mean, I have sometimes had issues with the sweet one, with the sweet ones in my family, but as a reformed destroyer, I understand where they are. They need the validation. Here's the thing. The sweet one also has a lot of repressed anger, because they're probably brilliant at whatever they do, but they're so busy trying to get love from the family. They don't want to lose the love by rocking the boat, by going and doing epic stuff financially that will then make everyone in the family have issues with them. So they leave that epic stuff to others in the family. But the thing is that like they are very scared of conflict. So because everyone loves them in the family.
Yeah.
If you look around, everyone loves them except your destroyers. Your destroyers probably think they are the most problematic people, and you guys can't understand. But then everybody in the family thinks destroyers are crazy, right? They are just the crazy ones. So you're not, and the fact that they can't get along with the sweet one is actually living proof that the destroyers are problematic to everybody. Everybody looks at them and is like, you are actually a problem in general.
Oh, I love this. I love this. So we've talked about the fixer, the destroyer, the sweet one. Who's next?
The next one is the runaway.
Oh.
Okay, guys, this is so obvious, right? So, you know, those family members that you only ever see at functions in the family, not even at birthday parties. Like you only see them at funerals and at weddings, maybe at weddings, definitely at funerals. They know where to be found. A party, you don't hear about them. Happy birthday, you don't see them. In fact, nobody even knows where they live most times. Some of them have even immigrated, right? So the difference between the runaways and the fixer is a fixer that has immigrated might as well be living right next door to you. They know all the family business. I know Tsitsi knows what I mean by this. They are all a fixer. Guys, a fixer, you can't get rid of them. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
A runaway, they don't even know. People don't even know their phone numbers. You literally have to figure out in the family. By the way, okay, their siblings know their phone numbers, but your kids, their nieces and nephews don't know their phone numbers, don't know their kids, don't know anything about them. So the runaways have basically checked out. The family drama and trauma and the money, in particular, the money story is just too overwhelming for them. They don't know how to deal with that. So to cope with the trauma, they numb out and they completely dissociate. And most of the time, the runaway just focuses on themselves and their immediate family. Right? So-and-so has a grandchild. The runaway doesn't even know that. Right? They literally don't know anything. Their children, you are going to meet their children for the first time at a family event. Just the way that things go with them, you know? You don't know anything about a runaway's money story. Most of the time, their money story could be good. Sometimes it can be really, really bad. But the thing is that you don't know what is going on with their finances, and they like it like that. And because they've run away, nobody even asks to ask them for money. Nobody even thinks to ask them for money. right? Because they're completely out of the family picture. And part of why they're out of the family picture is because they don't know how to deal with money within the family context. They're too scared. They don't know. So they think that if I show up for a family event, you people are going to ask me for money, and it's going to be too much for me. Right? So they don't know how to deal with that. And then they also don't know how to deal with the drama between the destroyer and the fixer. The runaway doesn't really do well with the fixer, right? But get this, sometimes the runaway and the destroyer will be in touch. Sometimes the only person that will know the runaway's drama is a destroyer.
That is so interesting. That's interesting.
Right? But think about it. So reflect on your family stuff. Why? Because the destroyer understands why the runaway will go.
Of course.
Right? The destroyer stayed to fix by destroying. The runaway saw the drama and the trauma and was like, this is beyond fixing. It's beyond destroying. I just want peace. And they just pieced out and left. So they are never part of those conversations. So once in a while, a destroyer and the runaway will be in touch. But fixer and the runaway, a fixer doesn't understand a runaway, if you think about it, because this is your family. How could you just check out and run away, right? The sweet one will also be in touch with the runaway, mainly because they are the sweet one.
Of course.
But the sweet one, the runaway may not necessarily like the sweet one because they're scared that the sweet one will drag them into family things. But often why a runaway even knows what's going on within the family, has any news, is because of the sweet one. The sweet one updates them. The sweet one will never ask for money, right? They'll never
the
ask
sweet one, I guess the sweet one is trying to keep them in the family in a way. Yes. They're trying to be the link. Oh, as you said, the fixer and the sweet one are like the glue in the family.
Yes.
Wow.
So the sweet one glues everyone together. So the sweet one will often even know the runaway's children. Like most of the family members won't know, but the sweet one will be like, oh, I know them. I talk to them, even though they've never met them. They're all the way abroad. They'll be like, no, I know them. I've spoken to them. We know all these conversations. We've had these conversations. Everyone in the family will be like, how the hell do you know this person? Like, how do you know anything about the runaway, right? Because the sweet one is literally keeping the glue, right? They're keeping the family glued together. And then the destroyer will just know little bits and pieces because they're the destroyer. And like every so often, they'll keep in touch, drop in and out. Unlike the sweet one who really is keeping tabs, will even remember the runaway's children and grandchildren's birthdays and call them up. The runaway may not do the same for the sweet one, but it doesn't matter for the sweet one because the sweet one is the one that is doing the gluing, right?
Wow.
So, yeah. And because the runaway is trying their best not to be involved.
Yeah, they don't want to be involved.
They don't want to be involved because they just don't want the money struggles and the money drama, right? But here's the thing. So this is very interesting. What I found is that a runaway that may have fixer tendencies will run away from their own family, but be a fixer in the family that they've married into, or be a destroyer, or be a sweet one in the family that they've married into.
Why? Is so interesting.
You haven't done your own drama. You haven't healed your own trauma. Honestly, think about it. The other family, when you finally learn about the runaway, the other family knows more about the runaway than anyone else in this family. Why? Because they've been fixing in the other family.
Wow.
So rather just stay, do your own drama. The runaway is a very, very fascinating archetype because they can literally physically run away to other countries and never, ever be involved. And when I say never, ever be involved, I mean, no birthdays, no nothing. Like you may never ever see them. Their kids may never even know how to speak your own home language. They literally disappear from the family.
Yeah, they check out completely. Wow.
Completely check out. And then the final archetype is the spoiled brat. So this is like the forever child. Okay, so we have this in our families. The adult who is 40, 50, whatever, has never held down a proper job, has never worked, has always been supported by their mom or the dad or the fixers in the family or the sweet ones in the family, right? They are basically, even when you go home and you meet them, they're staying at home. They still live at home. They've never moved out. Even when they have kids, they move into the house. Kids move into the house, or kids and husband or wife move into the house. They will not move away from their mothers or their fathers or even the family, right? So it's just, they may even just live in the back room. No matter if they have a high-paying job or a great car or whatever, they'll go buy the expensive cars, but it will never ever cross their minds to buy property and to move out of home. In fact, they'll look at you like you've got two heads if you even suggest that. They just don't get it. And often like they end up having, you can come home, will be someone 45 or something, and they'll have the same arguments with their parents that they had when they were 14. You didn't cook my food. Oh my gosh, where are my things, etc. So this is very, very interesting because most of us have this in our families, and then we go ham and we get angry. But the spoiled brat is literally stuck in a particular trauma, right? So what I want to also say is that the spoiled brat is most likely, if they are brilliant and they get a job, a career, what they'll often do is they'll spend that money on flashy cars, they'll get their promotions, but they'll still live at home, right? Even if it's not a necessity. So sometimes, yes, we live at home because our parents need us. That's a different context, right? That's often fixer archetype that does that. Mm-hmm. Right? But we know, you guys know what I mean when I say spoiled brat, right? We've all seen it. So they go out, they come back, their food is cooked by the mom or someone. They go out, they come back, the house is cleaned miraculously, the yard is taken care of. Everything is just happening for them. So issue with this is that the spoiled brat is probably stuck in a particular trauma in childhood or in their inner teen, and they've like not been able to grow beyond that. So they are forever being parented by their parents, right? Or someone else in the family. Second thing is when the spoiled brat gets married, and they do get married, they become a problem for their spouse, right? So often a marriage will work when it's a spoiled brat and the fixer. Why? Because a fixer now has a forever project. They can like go crazy and be mothering and forcing that person, their spouse, to get a degree, like fixing them forever. This is a forever project for them, right? The thing is, when you're married to a fixer and like you're a spoiled brat, then the fixer now has another child. And if the fixer, and it's an adult child, and if the fixer has that and children, the fixer now divides their energy of mothering and parenting between parenting the children and parenting a grown person. You have now then taught your children to be fixers, right? And to respond with fixer energies to anything that a spoiled brat does. Spoiled brat and a destroyer, being in a family or in a marital situation, can't work, really can't. A destroyer will destroy a spoiled brat, right? Because a destroyer will instantly point out all these issues and go into emotional nuclear detonation, right? They will literally go nuclear on this poor, traumatized human being, right? And start pointing out their issues. So even in a family, a destroyer will come in, and we've seen this, right? You find that a parent is nice and sweet and maybe is the sweet one, which is also very problematic when a parent is the sweet one and the child is the spoiled brat. A destroyer will come in and keep raising the issue in the family. Are we not going to talk about the fact that so-and-so is still living at home? When are you ever going to move out of home? Like, oh my gosh, your mother is still washing your underwear. Like, oh my gosh, mom, stop doing this, So
exactly.
Destroyers will do this and bring it to the surface until it's unbearable to the spoiled brat, right? So destroyers are great for that, right? And then You've got then, in terms of the sweet one will over nurture the spoiled brat. In fact, the spoiled brat will be able to manipulate a sweet one, because remember, the sweet one is driven by validation. So even the validation of a spoiled brat is important. So when you have a spoiled brat and a sweet one in a marriage, it's a recipe for disaster. Literally, because the spoiled brat is spoiled. They just want, and they take, and the sweet one will just exhaust themselves looking for validation. You want this, you want me to do this for you, you want me to cook for you, you want me to do this. The sweet one is just going to go and go and go. Same with a mother and a child situation. That's why you can find mothers that are like 70 years old, barely walking, barely able to do anything, and a child is like 50 years old, living at home still, and like just taking from the parent, and everybody's getting frustrated by the situation, right? Whereas a fixer in that case is like trying to fix the child, like, go study this, I'll pay for this, I'll do this. So the sweet one that is mothering a spoiled brat, it's really a recipe for disaster. You rather want, I feel like a destroyer sends them to therapy. A fixer also has their problems, but at least fixer and destroyer see the problem. And then a runaway will never ever deal with the spoiled brat. They just never ever meet. And often a spoiled brat is part of the reason why a runaway completely runs away, because they check out of the situation. They don't know what to do with it, right? So often, and the spoiled brat then becomes powerless without any of the other members of the family to take up the slack for them and look after them. So yeah, those are the archetypes, guys.
That is phenomenal, Vangile. And I can put names against every single one of those archetypes, whether they're people in my family or friends or people I know. I'm thinking of relationships where there's a spoiled brat in there, a fixer and a spoiled brat. I think a sweet one and spoiled brat, I think I've seen a lot of those.
Oh my God, that's the worst, I feel.
I've
at least
seen
the
a
fixer
lot.
complains.
Yes.
It becomes a forever project. You go to a dinner with them, they bring wine. You won't believe what this man is now doing. A fixer sees that they've got a problem.
Yeah.
A sweet one is just overly like giving. Yeah. And by the time they leave the marriage, they are drained.
They're drained,
emotionally exhausted from the spoiled brat.
I'm so glad that you've actually looked into this and you're sharing it with us, because I think for a lot of people, it's answered a lot of questions. And certainly for me, it has. Just briefly, would you mind sharing with us how you support individuals to improve their relationship with money or to understand themselves a bit better when it comes to, their archetype and how it influences their money?
Yes, so I have online courses, so you guys can come through and check out the online courses. I do have a free online course if people want to check it out. It's a 7-day course for people that are on my waiting list, but it's always available for anyone listening to this. You can go to wealthy-money.com/training. Again, wealthy-money.com/training. It's a free 7-day course around money and tapping into ancestral money wisdom, right? So I have online courses, and in my online courses, I also have Facebook groups that are related to my courses where I hold space for people and I'm able to work with them. Unfortunately, I'm fully booked for individual coaching until May 2023, but I do have a mastermind group coaching if people are interested in that. So that is how I work with people. And I've got tons of free resources on my blog. So you can go to wealthy-money.com/blog. You can go to wealthy-money.com/podcast to listen to my podcasts. So I've got quite a lot of free resources available so people can listen to the work I do around trauma. The archetypal work is, the book is still being written, so it should be out in a few months. But I do a lot of the trauma work that led me to this archetype in my Money Magic course. And again, you will get access to the Money Magic course once you and learn more about the Money Magic course once you sign up for the free 7-day training course.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I'll put a link to your website in the show notes, and your podcast as well. I'll do that so people can find it easier to get to you. In a few words, could you tell us what wealth means to you in terms of your physical, mental, spiritual, social, and financial well-being?
I think in everything for me, wealth means choice. It means the choice to be able to make decisions. Often, even in our health, money is a huge part of the discussion. We can't say that we don't care about money, but having money means that I can choose the kind of doctor I want to go to, the kind of hospital I want to go to, the kind of care that I receive. Right? In relationships, having money, often women stay in relationships because while we share the rent, we're sharing the expenses, at least he looks after the kids financially. Having money means that I can walk away from a relationship. I don't have to put up with anything because I can look after myself financially. And then in terms of just emotional well-being, having money means that I've got the choice, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, anxious, scared, to go get emotional support. I don't have to try and do it myself. I can get therapists, right? I can hire the experts. Financially, having money means that I get to choose how I make money. Often we think it's about having money, but actually it's more than that when it comes to making more money. One of the things that I realized, and I realized this when my uncle passed at the end of 2017, my mom was really not able to deal with the situation. Her high blood pressure was too high. Everybody else had to leave and go back to work. I was the only one that had the choice to stay. I put my apartment up in Thailand for rent, and it was leased out. For 2 months, I could be in South Africa, and I didn't have to do anything. All I did was do live videos, do basics around my business, and have my team support me. My job was to look after my mom, to cook for her, to give her massages, to take her to the spa, to make sure she was okay. And I could do that because I had the resources, but I also had the choice as to how to make the money. And for 60 full days, my mom was my only job.
Yeah, that is so true. It's, it is about choice. And that's part of the reason why I called my method the Choices Blueprint, because it's about being able to do things the way you want to do them in a way that aligns with who you are. And, as I always say, it's about becoming the designer of your financial future. So thank you for sharing that with us. Vangile, thank you for coming on to the podcast. You have been an amazing guest. And I know whoever is listening to this episode is going to have so many light bulb moments. They're going to understand themselves more, a bit better. They're also going to understand their family a bit better. I'm sure all the Africans who will be listening to this will be able to maybe make better decisions when it comes to Black tax, or at least understand why people are reacting the way they are when either they're giving them assistance or not, and why maybe some people have decided to step away. So thank you for everything you're doing and for sharing your work with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for listening.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Connect with me at The Wealth Conversation on Facebook and Instagram so we can continue the discussion. Also, if you're ready to define what wealth truly means to you, then go to thewealthconversation.com and download the Wealth Cornerstones guide. Until next week, stay focused on becoming the designer of your financial future.